Thank you, Casey. It's a pleasure for me and the other members of the Haskins Commission to be with all of you during this tournament, especially to be with Annika as well. The Fred Haskins Commission began in 1971. There, believe it or not, there was not an award in college golf for the best performance during the year. Well, fast forward, and ladies college golf began to catch on, and it occurred to us that there was no award for the best performing lady for the year. And so we decided that we needed to have the same kind of award. So we approached Annika about naming this award for her because of her name recognition, and she thankfully was excited about the idea, and we began this award 4 years ago. And I want to stress to you again, on the ladies' side as well, this is your award, and you vote for who you think is the best player and who shows the best character on the golf course. It's not us making that decision. It's you, the players, you, the coaches, and the media. So, thank you for letting me promote that. I appreciate that, Annika. So let me throw it open now for questions for Annika. I'm going to throw one at her first. The obvious question to me is Solheim Cup. I'm curious, do you have mixed emotions? I mean, you live in the USA, and then you coach the European team. I mean, do you have mixed emotions with that? Or?
It is. I was actually the first captain with dual citizenship. So, you know, I'm European and then I'm an American. I have been for 11 years. And, you know, my kids are dual also, and my husband is US. So, yeah, of course. But I think just with, you know, something like this, it's about two teams doing the best they can. And, you know, it's not necessarily that I think about that as much. It's more of this is our team and we're going to try and play as well as we can and get them ready and fired up and against this other team. So it is a little ironic in a sense because, you know, 1 week you're best buds and then next week's like, I talk to you next week. You know, take a little break. And but that's just how it is. I mean, I think, as you know, golf is a global game and all these different players from all these different countries. I mean, I'm sure you know what it's like. So, but at the end of the day, I want to say I think women's golf was the winner. I think it was an amazing performance. The show was outstanding. So everybody did their part.
Questions? How many of you ladies plan on trying to go pro, go professional? Raise your hand. Let's see what we got in here. It's a room full of potential. So, Annika, any advice on the transitioning from the college game to the professional game for these ladies?
Well, first of all, I think you should consider it if it's on your radar, and you know, because if you never try, you will never know, and it's worth a try. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't try. I think it's important to take the opportunity and just give it a shot. You've come a long ways. I know 99% of other young female golfers would love to be in your shoes. You've come this way already, so I think it's worth a try. It's different. I remember just being in your shoes in college. I remember the coach. She did literally everything for us. Planned the trips, the clothing, the schedule, made sure I had equipment, everything. I didn't really have to do anything other than show up and study a little bit here and there and work out and practice. But the rest was taken care of, and then you turn professional, and there you are. You know, there's no. It's like, okay, you have to figure out what tournaments to play in, and maybe you have to make sure you have some money, maybe a sponsor, equipment, clothing, everything. I mean, it was, and you know, you get to a city and everything was new. So all of a sudden you feel like you're on this little island by yourself and that nobody else cares. And that was a little hard. Of course, you make friends and you have some friendships, but everybody's out there trying to play their own game, and you know, everybody needs to follow their own routines. Just because your friend is playing 3 or 4 tournaments in a row doesn't mean that you should do that. Maybe you need to play 5 or 6, or maybe you should only play 2 or 3. You have to find your own rhythm that works for you. So it can get a little lonesome out there, and but that shouldn't turn you away from the dream. You know, dreams. If you have an opportunity to live your dream, you should really give it a shot. And you know, I look back at my career, and it's obviously wonderful memories. You know, we all have some. There's going to be some bumps along the way, there's no doubts, whether it's, you know, maybe you feel like your game is not good enough, or maybe, you know, you're having some difficulties with caddies or sponsors, or it's not that easy. But there's a lot of players are willing to help. A lot of players wants to be mentors and guide other players around there, and that's very helpful. But ask questions, and then trying to figure out your own recipe. There's not one recipe to success, but you have to find your recipe, and it takes a little while. You know, I joined the tour in '94, and you know, I was quite. I felt like a beginner when I got out there. I didn't have any routines. I really didn't know what to do. And then eventually you start to establish things. I always tell people, when you do something right, to make note of it, and then do it again. And if you do something that didn't work out, make a note and don't do it again. We all learn along the way. And you know, I can sit up here all day and talk about mistakes I made, but I think those mistakes is what make you stronger. I think it's those mistakes that, you know, make you just better, and don't feel like it has to be flawless from the beginning. Don't feel like you have to win every tournament you go out there. It's very tough out there. And make sure you have a solid foundation, you know, a solid support team around you, and you know, take one day at a time. I think the best advice I received from one of the players later in my career, which I wish I would have thought of maybe a little sooner, was from Amy Alcott, one of the great Hall of Famers. This was towards the end of my career, and she looked at me, she said, Annika, are you smelling the roses along the way? And I realized that I wasn't. I was just so focused every single day and on what's coming up next, that I really didn't smell the roses along the way. And that's one of the things I wish maybe I would have done a little better. It doesn't mean that you sit for weeks and just kind of, wow, how great I am. But I think sometimes, you know, we're so hard on ourselves, all of us. And then I know many of these young golfers here, you know, just want to be perfect. You know, we're perfectionists, and things need to be just done right, and you always have to, you know, shoot on the par. And a lot of times we don't give the credit that we need, or sometimes a little pat on the shoulder and say, you know what, I'm doing something good here. It's not easy to do what you do today, to be able to balance schoolwork, friends, golf, and the demands maybe from the coaches and the teachers. There's so much going on. Sometimes it can be very stressful. But I know this group here, you are a special group of athletes that can handle a lot of this. But it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, you know, sometimes feel like it's tough and it's lonely. But if somebody can do it, you guys can do it. I did it. I got 2 arms and 2 legs. I'm just like everybody else. I just have a strong mind and a strong will. That's my husband. I'm very stubborn. But you have to have that little extra, you know? You have to have that little extra. Nobody's going to give it to you. I was never given a trophy. I had to earn the trophy. You have to go out there. On rainy days, windy days, you gotta earn it.
Annika, someone doesn't want to stand up and ask you this question. Casey passed it along to me.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your 59.
And
And does everybody understand when I say talk about your 59?
It wasn't my birthday. No, I'm not there yet. Not yet. Yeah, March 16, 2001. Obviously, I remember the day quite clearly. It was second day of the ping register, standard register ping was called, in Phoenix. And I had a morning tee time, teed off on the back 9. I really didn't have a great warm-up, but because I was kind of rushing, I somehow came late to the course. I was stuck in traffic, so I was kind of running around. And then teed off on the back 9, par 5, dogwood left. I don't know how many of you have played Moon Valley, but it was one of the nicest stops that we had on tour at that time. Obviously, because the Soham Cup, the Soham family lived just around the corner, and they've been such a supporter of women's golf, so it was nice to be able to play there. Anyway, back to the golf. I teed off, and par 5, made a birdie on the first, and then kind of calmed down a little bit. Birdied the second and the third and the fourth, and then I thought, well, it's going to be a good day. And I don't know about you, but I circle my birdies on the card, so I'm feeling a lot of circles. And I I turned to my caddy, I said, how many birdies in a row have you seen? And he said, I've seen 4 birdies in a row. And I said, well, I've done 6 before, so I know I can do 6. So I birdied number 5, I birdied number 6, I birdied number 7, and then I birdied number 8. And now I have a lot of circles on my card. I'm getting a little nervous. And so I get to the 9th tee, which is the 18th of the course, and I remember turning to my caddy and said, hey, I'm so nervous, I need to make par. He said, okay. So I hit the fairway, I hit the green, and I 2-putt, and I made par. And I make the turn in 8 under. We walk past, the clubhouse to the first tee, and I see this leaderboard, and I love to look at leaderboards, but I said, okay, let's not focus on the leaderboard today. I just gotta play my own game. Get to the 10th tee, which is the first hole of the tournament. I turned to my caddy and I said, I'm ready for some more birdies. He said, okay. So, I don't argue with a player that's playing well, right? So I birdied number 10, 11, 12, and 13. So now I'm 12 under, and now I look at my scorecard again, and now I'm starting to feel, when your mind starts to wonder what it means and what am I doing, but then the other part of the brain says, stay in the moment, focus on the next shot. So I do that. I make a few pars. We come to 17. It's a par 5. I hit the green in 2 and 2-putt for birdie. So now I'm 13 under going into the last hole, and now I'm calculating, and now I realize what's happening. And, funny enough, I was playing with my sister. Of all the players you can play with, of all the 143 other players, I was paired with my sister and Meg Mellon. So it was very nice to be in the same group with Lotta. So anyway, we come down to the 18th, and Terry, my caddy, says, okay, because I'm so pumped up. I mean, literally, I felt like I could walk on water. And so I grabbed, a club less, just hit up, if it's a shorter par 4, hit it forward off the tee, get in the middle of the fairway, and then we're kind of, looking at the second shot, and my caddy said, just hit in the middle of the green. The location was a little bit on the left, the flag there, so I said, no, I'm going to hit at the flag. I've been hitting at the flag all day. I'm not changing my strategy on the last hole. Grabbing a club less than I normally would, because I knew it was going to fly a mile. And luckily got on the green, probably had a 9-footer for 58. And so go a little bit on the left side and kind of just slip by about 3 feet and mark the ball and let them finish. And, when you have a lot of time to think of a putt, it's like, oh, can I just finish before I start thinking about other things? So anyway, I remember standing over that putt and just telling myself that, if you miss it, it's a great round, my lowest ever, but if you make it, it's history. So then I started to shake a little bit more, so then I said, okay, this is just a 3-footer. It felt like it was a really long 3-footer, but it was only 3 feet. And then said, you made thousands of these, just trust yourself, and the ball doesn't know if it's going in for whatever score, so trust yourself, and it rolled in, and there we go. So it was just obviously an amazing round, and something I'm very, very proud of, and I've analyzed the round about 1,000 times. I'm sure you can imagine, what was different that day compared to the day before, or a month later, or a year later. And one of the things that come to mind is I never thought about my second putt. Of course, it helps to hit every fairway and every green. We have 18 opportunities, but somehow I never thought about the second putt, and I couldn't really figure out why. And that's probably the mystery that I will always think of. But to me, looking back at it, it's just knowing that you can do something that in your mind you think you can do. Because in my mind, I've shot many 54s actually. And I highly recommend to all of you, when you start setting your goals and you have visions, whether it's a score or just an achievement, that live it in your mind, live it in your vision, so to speak, for a while. Because when all of a sudden, when you're there, it feels like you've been there. Because if your mind doesn't believe it, there's no way your body's going to believe it. So it all starts up here, in your mind. And that's why I think golf is so much fun. Because you can be in control of yourself in so many different ways. Just make sure that your mind and your body work together. And it is possible. Because still, from this day, no other female have done this. And I would love for the next person to do that, to be one of you in this room. Because it is possible.
Annika, compare your nerves over that 3-foot putt versus Colonial and the first tee. When Annika was the first lady to play in a men's PGA tournament, and she had to tee it up with the men. And I'm curious, how were your nerves over the 3-foot putt versus the nerves being on that first tee?
You can't compare. I mean, the way I felt on the first tee at Colonial 2 years later is just, I have never been so nervous in my entire life. I mean, I wasn't so concerned about my shot. I was concerned about when you tee it up, can you keep the ball on the tee? I was shaking and I was thinking, should I have my caddy tee it up? But that's not part of my routine, so. I can tell you many, many stories how, you know, when you're nervous, how, well, you know that when you get nervous. We all know what happens when we get nervous. Sometimes we don't want to share it with others because you think it's embarrassing, or, you know, maybe I'm weird because I feel this way. But, you know, we all get nervous, and I think when you get nervous it's because we care. You know, you want to do something right, and it has a meaning to it. And, you know, I prepared months for this opportunity, and practice rounds and everything. I was fine. Then, you know, the last few putts on the putting green, I turned to my caddy, and he said, I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. He said, well, it's a little too late. You're teeing off in 10 minutes. So we walked down to the, you know, to the tee, you know, do the kind of the normal things you do, get your scorecard and kind of compare golf balls and introduce yourself and everything. And I guess I turned to my caddy, and I heard this afterwards, and I was saying something. My lips were moving, but no words came out. And I didn't notice. And my caddy told me this afterwards. He said, that's when you made me nervous. Because he had no idea what's going to happen next. Her lips are moving, but nothing is coming. Can she move her arms and no swinging the club? I'm not sure. So anyway, somehow I was able to keep that ball on the tee. And I just told myself, this is just another forward. Language was very similar to the putt, just the routine, you know, in my mind, and my pre-shot routine, which is 24 seconds. Terry timed it, and it was 23 and a half. So I was pretty much on the number, just sticking to my routine and trusting myself, picking a target and so forth. And I probably hit one of the longest forwards I've ever hit because I was so pumped up. But the relief of just seeing the ball starting straight and up in the air, and then knowing that this is it. Now I'm inside the ropes, let's just do our thing. So yeah, it's different comparison, but you know, I think when you put yourself in these situations, when you feel uncomfortable, you know, it's easy to be very scared, it's easy to be very, you know, like you start to doubt yourself, but you'd be amazed how many times we as human beings can step up to situations that we might not be comfortable with. And many times we're very proud of what we achieve, and I can tell you that I was very proud of what I achieved. And you know, I tell everybody this, especially, you know, in a crowd like this, is, you know, don't be afraid of challenges. Don't say no because you think you're gonna snap hook a ball and kill somebody on the left, you know. Don't say no if you have an opportunity in school, because if you say no, you will never know what it's like. And that's how we get better and bigger and stronger. Try. Don't be afraid. But make sure you are prepared. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure that you go through the situation and you do everything in your power to do well. And you'll be amazed how you will step up a step or two or three to a situation you might feel like you would never do. And I can tell you that growing up in Sweden, actually it doesn't matter where I would have grown up, I was very shy. I would have been shy anywhere in the world. And you know, I wouldn't raise my hand in school because I thought if I answered the wrong answer that everybody would laugh at me. So I thought it was better to be quiet. And it would always irritate me because I would say, oh, I knew that answer. So, you know, a little fast forward onto the golf course. You know, I played in junior golf tournaments, and you know, in Sweden, I'm sure the same over here. You know, you win, you have to give a winning speech. Holding the microphone would just freak me out. It would make me so nervous that I would miss on purpose so I wouldn't have to give a winning speech. So you can imagine going home with my parents. They said, well, how did it feel? And it seemed like every single time I looked like the choker because I would chip or 3-putt or do something extra, so I would finish second or third, so I would still get a prize, but I didn't have to say anything. I overcame that because I have the strength and the stubbornness to win a golf tournament, that I had to overcome this and learn what it's like to speak in front of crowds and just express my thoughts or, share the passion I had. But a few years after I turned professional, my University of Arizona, asked me to give the commencement speech at school. And I said, well, how many people will listen? They said, oh, a few thousand. I said, what? Well, about 10,000. And I said, there's no way, in the back of my mind. But I didn't say that out loud. I said, can I think about it? I said, sure, think about it. The first reaction was, there's no way I'm going to give this speech. I mean, first of all, who wants to listen to me? And what am I going to say? And, this would just, I'd rather hit a lot of colonial shots than giving a commencement speech. But I somehow convinced myself that I needed to do this. And so I called them back within a few days and said, hey, thanks for the honor. I would love to do it. I had 6 months to prepare. So I could literally write a word every day in my speech. I had so much time to get ready. And I did. And I had a few friends help me with some of the, grammar and so forth. But this was probably one of my biggest challenges, to stand up on that stage and give a speech to, I wasn't really going to talk about golf. I was going to talk about other things. But I decided that this is something I need to do for myself. And somehow I didn't stumble on stage. I didn't stumble in my speech. But I walked away there, and I thought, this is what I need to do for me personally to get better. Again, same thing here as the colonial. I could have said no and feel comfortable, but then I think in the back of my mind, I would have said, you're a coward. Step up. Have the courage to do it. And I'm urging all of you, whatever it is in your life, player or parent or teacher or coach, do something sometimes that you're a little afraid of. Something that you think you should be doing, but you're maybe afraid to try. And you'll be amazed afterwards. That achievement is something that will carry on for a while. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
That's really good stuff.
Yeah.
That's really good. We've got a question. Y'all may or may not have seen Dan Luther last night at the dinner at 3M, but Dan, this is Dan's golf course. And he has allowed us to come play it this year, and I think it's a phenomenal course. But Annika, he has a question for you, so.
Well, Annika, it's inspirational, and I don't know how many tournaments you would have won had you not been so shy. But the question I have is, who did you play with at Colonial, and how were they?
Oh, they were tremendous. Dean Wilson and Aaron Barber. Unfortunately, they don't play golf today either, so I hope it wasn't their experience with me that turned them off. But they were both rookies, and they could not have been any nicer. I felt like I had like two brothers walking down the fairway with me. We embraced each other, and like I said, they were just rookies. They didn't ask for this pairing. And when they saw the pairing, I guess they called all their friends and family, and they came, and it became like a big deal. Dean was the only one that made the cut. So he said that he missed us over the weekend. But I'll never forget, because we walked down to this tee, and Aaron put his hand around me. He said, let's do this together. And I just thought it was so cool. It gives me goosebumps to think about it. So this was in 2003. 10 years later, Golf Channel decided to do kind of a 10-year anniversary. And they said, we would love for you to fly to Dallas. We would love to kind of walk around with you, and we want you to kind of do like a memory lane thing. Talk about your feelings and what you were thinking and so forth. And I said, sure. So I fly there, I land there, we sit in the car, and the camera is kind of just catching, my thoughts and everything. And first of all, we go through the front gate. during the tournament, I never walked through the front gate. I walked through the kitchen, through the delivery service, and through. So all of a sudden, I'm seeing a clubhouse I've never seen before. And of course, it was a Monday, and there was nobody around. So it looked very, very different. We go through the locker room, and we go through this, and then we go through the pro shop, and then they say, well, let's head down to the first tee. I said, sure. And of course, there's nobody there, so it looks very, very different. Because when I played, it was a lot of people. There were people in the tree. There was a big wall. It just didn't look. I didn't even know I was at the Colonial. It looked very, very different. I get down there, and then I see 2 people on the tee, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. I walk down there, and there's Aaron, and there's Dean. Yeah. And then they turned to me and they said, hey, we're looking for a third. Do you want to play? And it was so cool of the 2 of them to show up 10 years later, and we all kind of reminisced about the experience. And it was so funny because I heard things from them that they experienced that I didn't know at the time. I think Aaron said, yeah, I got a clothing deal for a week. Thanks a lot. I remember Dean saying, yeah, I had to get up 4:30 in the morning and do Good Morning America. Thanks a lot. So it was just, a lot of stories from their perspective that we got to share. And then we played a few holes and we talked and everything. And I'll never forget, we came to the last hole and there was a family there standing on the 18th green. And we introduced each other, and they said, we were here 10 years ago. Now my daughters are 18, so they were 8 when they were here, when you played. And he said, we're from Oklahoma City, and I wanted my girls to follow somebody that was doing something different. I wanted my girls to see that ladies and girls can do it too. I didn't have any tickets to the tournament. This is the father talking. But I decided we're going to get in our car and we're going to drive down to Texas and we're going to watch this Annika play. His daughters didn't really know much about golf, but they drove down there in the car. They get to the area and they somehow found some tickets, and they stood exactly at that spot on the 18th when I came to the 18th. And the girl said, yeah, I remember you. You were eating a banana. I didn't really remember that part, but here they were, and Golf Channel had found this family that made such a sacrifice to drive all the way down from Oklahoma City and to be there, and now to come back and talk about this story. And the story that the girl said is that you inspired us to do this and this, and now we are determined to do it. So many fun stories have kind of come, and I can talk all night about these stories, but it's really weird how things were kind of coming to a full circle. And obviously I'm very thankful for Golf Channel to give me that opportunity to hear about it, but then also to spend some more time with those 2 guys. They were terrific. They were just very supportive. We high-fived if we made a birdie. I mean, it was very, very special.
That's really a terrific story. Casey's telling me we got to stop, but I do want to say one thing, and I hope I can say this in the right way. We lost Arnold Palmer this year, and he was the people's pro. Everyone was so fond of Mr. Palmer, and he was fond of everyone that followed him. And you strike me as maybe the next Arnold with golf. And I think people love you, and you're so warm and friendly and welcoming to anyone that wants to approach you. And I think that's terrific. So thank you, Annika. And Casey, I'll give it back to you.
Perfect. Well, thanks. Let's give both of them a big round of applause.